Hey everybody, it's Julie Hoffman from the Okanagan Real Estate Investment Group, and I have with me Mark Coons, who's a Kelowna realtor as well as real estate investor, and he's joined me because he started a real estate group, a Facebook group, all about the new legislation for the short-term rental rules that have feels like crash landed in British Columbia. So welcome, Mark. Why don't you just tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Julie. So my name is Mark Coons, as you mentioned, local real estate agent, but also investor as well in the marketplace. So definitely taking a little bit of that niche market into my real estate business with helping real estate investors get in the market, whether it's people looking to develop lands or long-term investments, but also really, especially in the last few years, the way we've seen home prices increase and costs of acquisition increase made a shift in our real estate business and helping our investors getting a little bit more into the short-term rental market because the tenancy laws are a little bit more favorable, and then you also have more favorable options for return on your investment when you're purchasing it. Just help our clients and remain as agile as possible to be able to make and put money in people's pocket. At the end of the day, I'm here to kind of help investors out, and so it seemed like in the last couple of years, that's the shift that our investors had been doing was the short-term rentals.
Definitely. We found ourselves also going into the short-term rental space. And that's one of the things I liked about it personally as an investor is the flexibility, because if you have a tenant that you're having trouble with, it's extremely difficult to do anything about that, regardless of what they've done. So it can be quite frustrating. So to have, I don't know, it just kind of feels like the legs cut out from under a lot of real estate investors in British Columbia. What kind of warning did you see on the horizon? Were you aware that this has been kind of on the go for the past 5 years?
Um, Not necessary for that long. I didn't know how severe it was going to be. I
Mm-hmm.
I thought Kelowna was going to be relatively maybe not impacted as greatly, is because Kelowna is already fairly heavily um, can't think of the word right now, but they're already fairly restricted already with in terms of the municipal laws that City of Kelowna has with return terms of short-term rentals, especially in condo buildings, and a lot of the principal residents laws that were kind of put into place. Some of it was already applicable right now in Kelowna. So I didn't think it was necessarily going to maybe have as big of an impact, and the kind of the legs, as you mentioned, legs kind of taken out from underneath us kind of situation as big of as it was, and just painting the entire province with a broad stroke of the brush, and not taking into account certain factors in different regions where you're going to have tourism impacted, and then the 1.8 million visitors here that are coming to Kelowna every year. That was based on 2022. Previous years to that were even higher, over 2 million visitors. We're going to see a huge impact on the local economy, and it's not my stance, I guess, on this. And I can't take credit for that Facebook group. That was definitely somebody else. I've just
Oh, my
partaked
bad.
in it. But so I do want to give credit where credit's due, and that wasn't my credit, but I wish I had thought about it. But regardless of it, it's an issue that not only it's not about just trying to help people save money. I know a lot of people kind of say, have the argument, oh, why are, for investors, or just have that negative viewpoint for investors, that, everybody's just cash hungry and everything like that, which is, I'm sure a lot of your viewers and everything like that, it's quite the opposite. That the true people are try and provide housing to people that need housing and stuff like that. And as investors, I believe, and how I approach my business is and why I work with developers and try and get higher density and everything like that, is provide more affordable housing for everybody to be able to get in the market. And it's not anybody, one person taken advantage of. It's really just trying to help the people out that need it the most. And so I feel like on the economy side of things, I hope it's maybe some studies are done before they finalize the implementation of the rules and everything like that, to maybe make some amendments on it. But that's the biggest impact I feel that it'll have on the area, would be just on the overall economy.
Now, on that note, who do you think is going to be most affected? You think it's going to be the visitors?
Well, I think, so you remove supply from the equation. So or short-term rental supplied from the equation. So you're taking, I think the city of Kelowna is estimating around 2,400 units that could be affected.
Right.
Some of those might be grandfathered in. It depends on. So even if you remove, I think I was at a meeting with or at a luncheon with the mayor for the UDI luncheon yesterday, actually, and I think there's about 1,200 non-registered short-term rentals right now in Kelowna. So even if you take away half the supply, my biggest thing is, is there enough hotel rooms for people to come and visit? And I think the biggest hit ones will be the restaurants, the tourism places, the wineries. I think a lot of those places will be hit. Anytime you remove the supply as well, you're going to also be looking at increasing the price of these rooms. And so hotel rooms, and as a young, I have a young family and everything like that. And when we travel, we prefer not to stay in a 1-bedroom hotel room with, 2 beds in it, even though it'll suffice for us. We prefer an option, more options with, maybe at least a 1-bedroom with a pull-out couch in the middle, or something that a lot of the short-term rentals will be able to provide, just for a variety of room options. And so that's where I think we're going to be not seeing those young families move or come here. It's going to be more for the affluent, or to the other side of it, maybe it's just going to be on either end of the spectrum. A lot of the middle class visitors here, because in the hotels as well, there's a wide range of quality for type of hotel you're in. So there's 3,500 hotel rooms based on, I think it was 2020 numbers. From my research. So about 3,500 hotel rooms and they just don't have enough workers to be able to get those flipped over and increase the occupancy. And that's where the short-term rental owners were providing part of the market. They're supplying some of that.
They were filling that gap. They were filling that gap, basically.
They're exactly right. They're filling that void where there's, they're able to, if it's somebody just, short-term renting out their basement, I got neighbors across the street. They do that. I had my parents stay there, and it was great. And the homeowners would just go downstairs, flip, and turn it over for the next guest. So we're definitely going to remove a lot of that to it, and it's really just going to put an additional strain and additional need for additional workers here. But Kelowna is not set up for the cost effective in my books, and maybe things will get cheaper. And I mean, they're trying to make things cheaper for everybody, but how often do things get cheaper, with the inflation we're seeing these days? So cost of living in Kelowna is quite high. And it's already tough enough finding workers across the country, let alone in Kelowna. So I really feel like it's going to be a overall impact. And at the end of the day, the tourism areas, the restaurants, the downtown, the people go out to eat. Those are the big ones that will be impacted. And unfortunately, I think like a lot of the mom and pop things will also kind of struggle to continue to make ends meet.
Well, and speaking of mom and pop, I mean, that's the Airbnb mentality. It's kind of like a mom and pop hotel, right? And it's my understanding that, and I don't know who you've talked to. I talked to somebody who's a really reliable source, and this person doesn't really want me mentioning their name, but that this has been coming down the pike for the past 5 years. Basically, big hotel, like you could compare it to big pharma or big corporation. Big hotel has been after short-term rentals for the past 5 years, It's my understanding. Again, I can get the sources for you if it's helpful, or anybody that's listening to this. That the legislation, again, has been in the work for the past 5 years. Big Hotel has big pockets. They've been able to draft basically bulletproof legislation in order to have this be effective and efficient as far as sweeping the whole province. And that's concerning, because it's like when Walmart moves into a town, I go to Walmart. Okay, I don't have anything against Walmart, but I know for a fact that it shuts down a lot of the mom and pop shops because they just can't compete with the pricing.
Yeah.
And hotels can afford to have only 60% occupancy, whereas the short-term rental, the average short-term rental owner is like a mom and pop real estate investor that doesn't want the hassle of the landlord tenancy issues that keep coming up. That's just my little rant. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean, I would attest to that for sure. I think too, it's not only like the Walmart equation, but you also look at Amazon and what that's done in the last, even since 2020, in the marketplace, with Amazon taking over a lot of the, people are just clicking and ordering into their door versus going to the local. So buyer behaviors have changed in the last little while. So that's, and it's just as previously mentioned, I think that's also going to be a certain portion of the people that only get to experience Kelowna, is because Kelowna is also going to get so much more expensive in terms of overnight stays. For the young families, it's going to be tough for people um, to experience Kelowna. So now we're only going to be targeting a certain level of class in terms of people visiting Kelowna. And will it result in cheaper housing? My argument would say no, and I got a number of theories, to kind of back that up and everything like that. But I mean, I can't.
Let's go through those theories. Do you mind going through those theories? Because it's not just for Airbnb, it's for real estate investors in general. My concern is that this is going to perhaps spread east to all of Canada. And if folks can get ready, then, we've done some good here, right? So what are some of your theories when it comes to how it's going to affect pricing and markets?
Well, I like, so on the single family side of things, or just sort of on the purchase side of things, like for as a whole, like working with buyers or first time buyers, hopefully, we might see initial surge and a softening in prices in some of these condos. Kelowna in general is a highly desirable area where normally around 50% of our buyers are from outside the central Okanagan. So we got strong demand in the area from other areas of Canada. Lower mainland is roughly around 20 to 22% of our marketplace. Alberta's starting to pick up again. It's getting close to 10% of the active buyers in our marketplace, especially with how that market's going. So I think I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to increase supply, and this is going to be essentially with this broad stroke and the signing of this paper, they're just going to increase the inventory of potentially, 1,200 or maybe 2,400 units into the marketplace, which will create an initial surge in supply. But is that really sustainable over the long term to really create a long-term supply benefit to it, to really bring down prices, to make it an actual affordability side of the situation? You're also taking out a certain portion of the population that is, we spoke a little bit about the economy and what is the economy going to happen to the tourism and the egg industry and the wineries. And you look at it, and who are people buying these places or that have them rented out? Well, a lot of them are, so they might move to other areas that are cheaper. BC historically is not a rental friendly, especially in the last 5-10 years. On the long-term rental side of things, I mean, we can get into the theory about the long-term rentals and the the landlord rights or lack thereof of landlord rights, whereas mostly everything's heavily weighted towards the tenant rights. With everything we're seeing, any new legislation everything is all heavily favoring the tenants, which is taking, and a lot of your viewers will want to provide more supply. I have a lot of clients that they want to provide more supply to the marketplace, whether they're a developer, whether they're just they just want to pick up a couple rentals. It's all varying degrees, but the numbers just don't make sense. And a tenant, I've talked to numerous landlords, and tenants can take advantage of, and not all tenants are bad, but there are the ones, especially during the last couple of years, that can take advantage of the landlord situations. And whether they it takes 6 months to maybe a year potentially to go through the whole process to get them out, and during that whole time you're not collecting any rent or anything like that. So and that's where we've shifted our business with our clients there, just to create a little bit more sustainability and make the numbers make sense. And that's why we did kind of adjust with the marketplace and go move a lot of our clients over into the short-term rentals, unless the numbers actually did make sense on the buy side. But now we're seeing there's not a whole lot of investment opportunities right now because the numbers don't make sense. Existing tenancies, I guess, and another theory is, long-term tenants, you can only increase right now in 2023 2%. But the obvious question is, what's inflation? What are your additional costs? It's just things like that. When at the government levels, it's when they're making these decisions, it's tough to rationalize. And I know they're trying to help out the tenants, but it creates, and there's a negative connotation to investors right now in British Columbia. And there's not really, I don't want to say there's not any advocacy, but the tenant advocacy is a lot louder than what the landlord advocacy is. And it seems to go further in when at those decision tables with the politicians when they're making their decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's unfortunate because we're also taxpayers. We're also, in a big way, some of us that own a lot of places. The entrepreneur, especially in the Okanagan, keeps this valley going. It's one of the reasons why it's become so diverse, thankfully. I'll talk about that in a little bit. What exceptions are you aware of that are being presented to kind of soften this blow?
Well, so like WFN, so now we're looking another shift. So anytime with our clients, what we're really looking, and here's for your clientele, so we're always looking also at the exemption side of things. So we're shifting right now and we're going to try and get some clients out of some of these short-term rentals potentially, and maybe get them on WFN land. So the West Bank First Nation land, they right now are currently exempt. And then you also look at communities that are smaller, so less than 10,000 people, throughout. So you can maybe move something towards maybe the shoe swap. Got clients, they diversify. They're in the shoe swap right now, previously in the last couple of years. And then that's another, potential market. So you're just always trying to adapt to the marketplace and go where the money flows, and and see where it makes sense. There's definitely advantage. Like right now, I think I maybe need a little bit more research, but I think like WFN would be a good kind of place for people to look. But I just have to double check and see what if the band and the province have been talking, or what those conversations. I'm not privy to that information, if they're going to follow suit or anything like that. But definitely want to make sound decisions and educated decisions. Other exemptions that might come up are already resort designated areas. So they're talking about McKinley. Like McKinley would be an area that would be already grandfathered in just based on the current zoning. I would expect, I wonder about it too, if places like Playa del Sol or the Brooklyn building downtown Kelowna will eventually kind of work. And that's where I'm just trying to watch and see where the exemptions are really coming in at, to see if any of those resorty more areas, even though they're not zoned as a resort, but maybe through the city they can go through rezoning to get it rezoned to what it needs for the province. Or I know the city of Kelowna, it sounds like they're working with the province, so I, I wouldn't say they're totally against the short-term rentals. um I I think they're trying to work with the province a little bit, and I just don't know. I heard the mayor speak on, and he was speaking about it yesterday, and it's just a little bit unclear of um, which way they're kind of leading. They sounded, and in the media, they're supporting the government and everything like that with the initiative of short-term rentals, which kind of it's a little disappointing, I guess, from the industry. They already got some pretty good short-term rentals. Maybe they just focus on short-term rental rules already. And maybe, I could see it maybe a situation where City of Kelowna maybe just takes a more stronger approach and enforcing some of the rules that are currently being taken advantage of, instead of just removing all of the all of the rules and inventory. So
Yes. Will, do you know, this is out of curiosity for myself, but I've also seen several questions. Are principal residents still going to be able to apply for a short-term rental license from the city of Kelowna?
I believe they would be able to. I'd need more information on that one just to see how that is, but I believe principal residence, you can short-term rental it out. However, it has to be in your primary residence. It can't be in a secondary suite or in carriage house. I believe those all, and I just have to double check the zoning bylaws and everything like that. I always second guess myself, but
It's okay. It's
um,
okay. I'm not gonna
uh,
I'm not holding your feet to the
and so
fire here.
anybody, if anybody has questions on it, I'm happy to go through the zoning bylaws. I always find myself in there, and I just always just have to double check. But because every area is different. West Kelowna is different than City of Kelowna, Lake Country. So I just want to make sure everybody's getting the proper, and I'm not just molding two different areas with completely different bylaws into each other. So sorry,
Well,
back to your
and
question.
I want to just I want to put out there, because I don't expect you to know everything. I did notice you were posting so much, you know, as a way to help people and keep people informed. And I really appreciate that. That's why I reached out to you. If there's anybody listening to this or watching this, because I'm going to put it out on just audio as well as on YouTube. And if you know these details, then by all means, let's sit and have a conversation, because the more information people have, then the better decisions they can make.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, black and white, right? So that's really what we're here for today. I've just got all these questions what are you doing yourself to pivot in this world?
So I think with the new rules, so for our short-term rental, I think we're okay. So places like Big White, are also going to be exempt. It meets the criteria of less than 10,000 people. So our short-term rental right now is in Big White. So in terms of that marketplace, we should be fine. So we don't necessarily have to shift on our short-term rental side of things. Where we are shifting with our clients is maybe getting them out of these certain areas, whether it be a place that isn't primarily zoned for short-term rentals. So places like in Quail, on Pinnacle, on Country Club Road there, 1875, in the Pinnacle building, short-term rentals is a secondary use. And so that's when we're talking about looking at the specific zoning bylaws and what the current zoning is. Every building has a slightly different zoning. And so like the multi-family 3 or MF3 zoning, and that's where you have to individualize and want to make sure to look at the proper property, and make sure you're comparing apples and apples and seeing what what does the current city's bylaws look like? Because they're also always changing. The city of Kelowna went through an official community plan and rezoned all the different properties, and they to create some more consistency in the last year. And so it's just making sure that, you know, you can make, what it was zoned a year ago is different than what it was, maybe today kind of situation. So just want to make sure you're comparing the apples and apples, and something didn't get changed that you're maybe not aware of. So where we're shifting is getting some people maybe out of those places where it's not looking very strong. It's a secondary, like places like that country club. It's a secondary place where that's probably not going to make the list, even if it does get the exemptions. For some of the resort communities, are probably like the Brooklyn building, just because it's so brand new, and Mission Group, has strong ties with the city. Or you look at Playa del Sol, where that building is an obvious resort kind of build, and a lot of short-term rentals in those type of builds. Those ones might see more exemptions, but I don't think the city's going to put up a fight necessarily for these properties on country club. So we're working on maybe getting some more, moving them into the WFN land. Copper Sky is a good building, provides all the resort amenities, and shouldn't be affected, hopefully, with the changes. But that's kind of the main shift that we're kind of looking. We're just assessing everybody on a situational basis, and just seeing what makes sense, and working with them too. Okay, if it does go change, now you have to shift to a long-term tenancy. Now, are you going to be able to cash flow? Maybe if you bought in 5 years ago, cash flow might be fine. You might be okay just because you got in at a good time, and the rents have gone up, and you can get today's market rents. You're not adopting an old tenant, but for the ones that maybe got in the last couple of years, and they're still fairly highly leveraged type of situation, we're working on just trying to make some changes where the cash, just to try and make them cash flow positive, at least better chance to break even versus just having to eat the cost. And we're shifting sooner than later, because probably come the spring, a lot of these places, the short-term rentals as well, there could be exemptions made and stuff like that, so everybody might be okay. So there is a risk in making a decision too soon. But in this case, with the secondary use, it's not looking like any exemptions would probably apply to this situation. So we're going to make a move sooner than later to try and get ahead of the curve and the additional supply if it does hit the market. So save on the purchase price, or save on the sale price, and then go from there.
What could you elaborate on the secondary rules that you've been touching on? What does that mean for folks who don't really understand what you're talking about?
Yeah, so and this comes down to every property, every zoning will have a different zoning and what is allowed on the zoning. So this is where we work with a lot with our developer clients, but now it's proving a little bit useful in this situation. And so how the city will look at what is the intended use for the property. So the zoning, it'll offer primary sources. So that will be like residential housing, apartment housing. If it's commercial property, it'll say restaurants, office building type of thing. So it indicates how the city would look at the property in terms of what is allowed on that property. So there are some buildings that are like primarily, so the one country club that I was talking about, is primarily apartment housing. So single family housing, and then secondary use was, and there's a number of different secondary uses, but secondary use was short-term rentals. So short-term rentals from the city were allowed in those properties. A lot of people might not be aware that there's a lot of buildings that aren't short-term rentable in Kelowna. And so oftentimes that short-term rental would not be a secondary option. It would just be like, no, it's just a dash going through it. So if you look at other properties, like say, any of the other buildings, there's only a handful of properties right now that are currently zoned for short-term rentals in Kelowna when you talk about multifamily builds. And so if it doesn't meet that criteria or that zoning code, then short-term rentals aren't allowed in that. So it when we say it's been heavily regulated industry in Kelowna, it's been pretty, like they could enforce it a little bit better. But the rules there are rules in place to limit the amount of short-term supply on the marketplace. And there's definitely a need to limit the amount of short-term rental supply to provide more long-term options for people. But it's always tough when a municipal, the province is taking over for the municipal and the enforcement, but the municipality is still going to have to enforce it. So,
Yeah.
so going back to that question, yeah, there'll be different properties like single family homes will, like if you look at downtown Kelowna, they're going to be zoned MF1, so that you can allow up to four units on it, but depending on the size. But then like single family homes, no short term, it just indicates what's allowed on the specific property. So, um,
Okay.
yeah, sorry, I rambled there.
No, that's great. It's great information. Um, so what do you, so so when you've mentioned a couple times you're moving people from like focusing on certain areas or like literally are, how's it been as far as your client list when it comes to, have you had a lot of people phoning and saying, I want to list my property now? How soon should I list my property now? Has that increased for you as a realtor?
Um, it hasn't increased a whole lot. I think too, it's a little bit of that hangover. I mean, it's so new. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking it's first week of November, and I think it was released 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are also playing that waiting game.
Hmm.
Um, I, we've, and luckily, like, we've always believe in educating clients and stuff like that. And I had a lot of people looking for that short-term rentals, but the numbers just weren't making sense. So they ended up not buying. So it ended up working out in their situations. And now they're still able to make some moves. So calls have picked up a little bit. A lot of people are still unaware, I guess, of the potential severity of it. Of and really, I'm trying to make it, get out and reach out to all our clients that have these type of properties, or I know have been reliant on the short term rental income coming in to cash flow, just so they're aware of it, and they're staying, because some people live with their heads in the sand, and not aware, or maybe they hear it and they don't think of what the true impact is. So we got one client, so we'll actually have like a listing coming up next week with it type of situation. So it definitely, I think we'll start to see a influx of people, but a lot of it might wait until they see what amendments are made or what exemptions are made, to before they list. So it's not really the greatest time in the real estate market right now to be selling. Heading into winter, supply sales right now, we're down about 54% in October from what we were, on the 10-year average for worth of sales. So it's not the best time right now to sell. Inventory is fairly kind of high a little bit, but not drastically. So I think a lot of people are going to be probably waiting for that spring and planning for that spring rush for additional inventory. Yeah, and that's just complete gut feel, but that's
Yeah.
probably what makes the most sense for a lot of people and what they're thinking of. So,
Um, yeah, that's good. I had this question. Completely forgot it. But what are you what's the best way what do you think the best way is for people to stay informed?
um, so a shameless plug here. I do a weekly email,
Mhm.
for my
Great,
clients, and
great.
it's you can sign up for it, and I just provide people what's going on in the real estate market. This every Wednesday it goes out. Today, it being the first of the month, it's always real estate statistics. What was the real estate market doing last month? Where is it going? I'll look at different sides of the market. I do have a certificate in economics, so I kind of like to get into the economic side of it, whether it's macro or micro, and just analyzing, where looking at different sides of the market, because not all there's many markets within the overall real estate market where apartment housing is going to be different than single family. And even in the apartment housing, I mean, now things might be changing, but you had the short-term rental market, and then you also had the other side of the market. So just trying can niche it down as much as possible, but yeah, just staying on top of it, just staying educated on what's actually happening in the areas, and not just reading headlines, but just what is the overall big impact that certain issues are going to have. So it's always, don't just read the headline and just assume what you're hearing is true. I like to look at things from always being a little and believing everything will be true, but what is the potential, what is another impact that's going to happen from this. I did a YouTube video on and another shameless plug, but I did a YouTube video on specifically the short-term rental marketplace and what it's going to do to the industry for Kelowna tourism and that sort of thing. So not just taking everything with as it comes, but just trying to look into what is the overall impact, because there's and from that, and just most of it's just for my own knowledge, and then I will put it all out, and I just do my research. So there's only 3,500 hotel rooms in Kelowna, and you start running the numbers and stuff like that. Well, even if you on the short-term rental side of things, even if you assume you have 210 days out of high season, where your short-term rental will be, which is roughly 7 months, well, that's for the 2,100 hotel rooms, because of the 60% occupancy, that's only offering 435,000 rooms, not including, or I think it's maybe 476. Anyways, well below the number of rooms that we need, based on 1.8 million visitors a year. And then I just ran a quick number, and I just assumed there's 3 people visiting in a room type of situation, because Kelowna numbers, there's 2.3 people per household. So I rounded up on that one just to be a little bit safe on it. But so every year, we need roughly around 600,000 hotel rooms or rooms to be available for people. And that's not including seasonality, influx in demand during the summer and long holidays, and during like July and August during summer holidays. It's, definitely probably we need the good portion of it is during that time. So um,
So
things
on
like
that
that.
note,
Anytime there's new rule change, they're just trying to.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but on that note, if you want to take a positive spin on it, this is going to help a lot of the existing short-term rentals that are legal, because they're going to
100%.
benefit
Yep.
economically.
100%. And 100%. I mean, there's always opportunities. And it's just finding that next opportunity, right? The mom and pop bed and breakfast will probably do, spectacular. You have some clients that, they run a great bed and breakfast in Casa Loma. So it's just amazing. And, they're always booked, but they're living in that home, and then they do the bed and breakfast type of situation. So they're not going to be impacted in this, and they're going to probably be able to increase their rates. And they're normally half booked before. They're probably half booked right now. They're probably 3/4 booked right now, and just with repeat visitors and that sort of thing. So there's definitely going to be it. And it's, be the options for people. And it's just remaining agile, I guess, as people are making changes, adapting to it, or going to those short-term rentals in Copper Sky, and now like the rental rates in there will probably go up. So even if you're buying now, it might be a good opportunity to get into the market now before the additional demand goes into those buildings potentially, because you're probably going to see an influx in the overnight rental rate for what you can charge in a room.
Yeah.
Some properties are, so there's definitely opportunities, and that's what we're trying to do with some of our clients, where we're just trying to adjust beforehand and before prices increase now, on some of these other properties where a lot of people don't want to go to Copper Sky because it's West Bank First Nation land, and people don't like West Kelowna. But if there's no options,
Hey, Hey, wait a second. I'm talking to you from West Kelowna.
I live in West Kelowna too, so I'm very pro. I am very pro West Kelowna, but I'm just talking. It is a public
I
negative
know.
public perception, um, in the industry. But a lot of people want to be in Kelowna. They they
Yes,
want they want Kelowna, especially when we're talking about short term rentals. They want Kelowna. But
I
now,
know. I know.
I love. I'm very pro West Kelowna. I try and pump up West Kelowna as much as possible because I do love living there and. I definitely think, and especially on band land, I think that's a great opportunity. A lot of people are can take advantage of as well with just having the ability to um, save on property transfer tax alone. It's just
Yeah, that's big.
for when you look at the short term rental side of things, it just helps your property cash flow that much faster. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh boy, that's a whole other conversation. Band land for sure. Um, what is there anything that you would recommend to people who are already doing short-term rentals? Because this could be seen by anybody, especially throughout Canada. Anything you could recommend for folks to make sure that they are ready in case of some kind of sweeping legislation that comes down for them?
yeah, I definitely think just being out there talking out there in the community, so talking to your city council, 'cause even though the province is regulating this, on the lowest level you have your city council to be able to um, go to the city or go to the province and dictate any changes and that sort of thing. So definitely on a city and be involved in your city and know what's happening, whether it be with councilors or mayors or just being aware and following what's happening at these council meetings. That's something I try to do in my business, and I do put that out in my weekly email too if there's something, things changing at the city levels and that sort of thing. But it'll really indicate on and getting to know your city and what's allowed in your city currently. I think that's definitely, you always have to start what is currently allowed. Or that's where I like to start, is what is currently allowed. How did we get here? And then where is the direction going? And you can just have a city council change as well, and that can also change the complete direction of where your city is going, as I'm sure everybody's aware of. But just being involved in it and maybe helping out campaign, but talking to counselors and letting them know of the situation. And the next levels would be talking to the MLAs and getting going up the chain. But from a municipal level, I think that's, especially for the short-term rentals, it seems like it's going to be a municipal battle you're going to have to be fighting, and they're the ones that are going to have to be enforcing it. So even if they are going to do it, maybe make some concessions along, work with them and see where they can make concessions. Like, so some concessions in Kelowna could be, working with them and allowing some of these buildings like Playa del Sol and the more resorty type of buildings to be allowed the short-term rentals, versus just the broad stroke of no short-term rentals really allowed any in these prescribed areas. So I think just being just being out in the community and talking and know what's going on is knowledge is power. And then if anything is kind of going against the contrary, at least you're ahead of it ahead of time. Because if people are just going to wait till May to speak up, well, it's way too late by that time. The province is, like, for the province of British Columbia, they've been working on this for 5 years. And I have seen, you can Google it, and there's some stories out there from some reports from 2017. And if you look at who paid for these reports, a lot of it's the hotel industry and that sort of thing. So they definitely want Airbnbs gone. And so just be aware, get of it ahead of time, so you can also make a counter out. Earlier you can make any counter arguments, the better.
Mhm. Great advice. All right. Is there anything that anything else you'd like to add? By the way, everybody, we're going to put a link for Mark's email list around here, so be sure to join that to keep informed and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. I think I only have like 99 subscribers, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but come on. Anyway,
Well, Let's get you up, Julie.
Let's get my subscribers up too while we're at it. Why not? Why not? Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't covered in this conversation that maybe seems to be coming up frequently, like a frequently asked question, and in the last couple of weeks since this has all started?
No, I think you did a good job on touching base on most of the frequently asked questions. I think it's I think the biggest thing just to know and feel free to reach out. I can help people find any of this information. But just get in if you have any rental properties or you are currently doing short-term rentals, whether it be in Kelowna or Alberta, wherever you are located, just know go into the city level and look at the zoning bylaws. What is your zoning on your property? What does it allow you to do with your property? And just to see, because you could also, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a big province restriction put in place. It can also be on the municipal level where a city, a place in Alberta, say Cranbrook or wherever the situation is, Canmore, they can maybe put a restriction on short-term rental abilities. And so just knowing, okay, what is your current zoning? What does it allow? And is there any negative public feedback on this type of situation to get ahead of anything?
Yeah.
And just so you can make educated decisions to do what's the best, right? So yeah, just mostly just comes down to education and just arming yourself with all the proper information. So you are aware if there's changes being made, if it's going to impact you or not going forward.
Yeah, I think the theme of this conversation is get your head out of the sand. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what we'll call it. Maybe that's the title we'll give it. I don't know. We're gonna play around with it. So anything else before we hop off?
No, I appreciate you having me here, and definitely great to get to know you, Julie. And I appreciate all the content you put out, and I've been following you for a few years now, so it's definitely appreciate all the effort and time you put into all this. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe on her channel there. So let's get her numbers up.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Maybe have you subscribed? Because you could be my 100th. I don't know.
I'll be your 100th right now. Yeah.
Okay, there you go, buddy. Thank you so much for being here. Folks, I've got links and phone numbers and websites around here somewhere. If you are looking for Mark and you want to connect, I'll put his Facebook link there. Send me all your links, okay, Mark, and then I'll have it nearby for folks who want to reach out to Mark. Thanks again for all the information. It's been really insightful. I know it's going to help a lot of people. Have a great day, and maybe we'll see you at one of my events coming up. Hey, maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay, everybody, y'all take care. Get your head out of the sand and keep your chin up.
That's right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Julie.